Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're breaking down one of the biggest questions we get all the time. How many CTAs should you have? How often should you include them? What form should they take? So, just in case you're unfamiliar, a CTA is a call to action. So basically, it's whatever you want the prospect to do after reading your email or while you're reading your email. So it's going to be all of those links that you include and things like that.
Yeah. So again, the CTA, we're going to talk about buttons, hyperlinks, image banners. There's so many ways to include a CTA in an email, but they're not all created equal. So we're going to walk you through when to use what and why.
So, whether you're writing a nurture sequence or a sales sequence, getting your CTA right can make or break your emails. So, let's talk through the in depth strategy.
Yeah, let's talk with the biggie. Let's start with the biggie here, which is how many CTAs should you actually include in one email? And the answer is it depends, but generally less is more.
Totally. So, one clear CTA gives your reader one job. It reduces friction and decision fatigue, and it's really your best shot at getting them to take that one action. But there's a little bit of nuance to it. So, there are times that you might want to include more than one.
Yeah, for example, in a longer newsletter, right? You might have one primary CTA at the top and a few different ones sprinkled throughout, like links to blog posts or some tools that you might be mentioning, but they shouldn't compete with your main ask.
Yeah. But just because you want to focus on one primary CTA doesn't mean that you might only mention it once. So let's talk about how often you should repeat that CTA in a single email.
If it's in a longer email, you can repeat the same CTA two, even three times, especially if it's a scroll heavy email, right? But the key is to frame it differently each time.
Exactly. So maybe higher up in your email, you have a button that says book your call. And then the second time, it's actually hyperlinked in the text as you go into more detail. And then potentially the third time you mention it could come up in the PS section.
Mhm.
So it's all the same action, the same request, the same CTA, but different delivery.
A question we get asked a lot is what form should the CTA take? So let's get into that fun stuff, which is format. So, do you use a button, a hyperlink, or an image banner, or a little bit of all of it, like we just talked about?
Yeah, so those are going to be your three primary options
Mhm.
usually is a button, right? Buttons are awesome for drawing attention. They're clear, they're visible, and they're usually, they pop a little bit. So it's kind of instinctual to click a button. And they can have, shorter CTAs like buy now, book a call. Now, hyperlinks are really great when you kind of want to put more context to the link. They're a little bit longer. You can also use it for a bit of a softer ask, like referencing a blog post or just, casually referencing anything. Hey, you might want to check this out to dig deeper. Finally, we have images and banners, which kind of are the same thing. You're often using an image as a banner. So these can work really well in brand heavy emails. And depending on how you set them up, they can draw attention, but they're not always like as familiar of a concept for somebody to click an image necessarily. So you might want to link your image, but you might want to also include a button. And the other kind of caveat on images is if for some reason that image doesn't load, then you usually want to have some kind of other option for the person to see the CTA and click through to it.
Yeah, and quick tip here, always make sure your button text is action oriented. So instead of saying guide in the text in your button, you want to say something like get the guide or snag the recipe, right? Give them the action that they want it, that you want them to take in that verbiage there.
Yes. And keep in mind that this is something you can test in a lot of ESPs. So, in your back settings, if you're able to create an A/B test that you can test anything in the email, you can try, including a hyperlink or changing that to a button or changing that to a banner and see how many clicks you get on
Yeah.
each of those emails.
Yeah. And I want to talk real quick about CTA placement by the email type, right? Because this is something that stumps a lot of email marketers, especially when they're first starting out. So if you're writing a short sales email, your CTA is probably going to live near the top. But in a nurture or like a storytelling email, you might want to build the momentum first before dropping the CTA.
Yeah, and for longer emails that aren't so story driven, I do like to think of the CTA sandwich. You want to mention it at the top. You might have a bit of meat in the middle, and then you definitely want to close out strong. So you kind of get the CTAs on the bucket ends there.
Yeah. So to wrap up, one CTA keeps it clean and focused. Repeat it if the email is long and format it based on your tone, your audience, and your goal.
Yeah, and if you found this helpful, be sure to like and subscribe and do hit us up in the comments if you have any questions, follow up, whatever you want to chat about.
Yeah, we've got more videos coming to help you write emails that actually convert. So we'll see you next time.